Hey everybody, welcome to the Arc Audio Technical Training Series. Today we're here to go over a new and exciting product for Arc Audio. It's the integration between the Arc Audio Pro Series DSPs and the AR module from iData Maestro. Now the iData AR module is a great and innovative tool that's used to integrate products like ours, whether it's the PS8-50, the PS8 Pro, or the IPS8.8 when integrated with a compatible amplifier into a lot of today's OEM vehicles. In some cases, you can't replace those OEM radios, and what we're here to do today is give you a unique and innovative solution that allows you to upgrade your system, keep your factory controls, as well as give you that opportunity to give you the best sound possible the way you guys like it. So what we're dealing with today is we have a 2019 Ford Flex. And one of the reasons why we're using this vehicle is because for several years the Ford Flex came with the Sony MySync system in it. The MySync system was a great advantage and a benefit to a lot of the newer vehicles for the day, which incorporated a 12-speaker system that really gave some customers that perception of premium sound. But for many of us, we want a little bit more. The problem, of course, is the way that this system is integrated into the vehicle. It really creates a lot of challenges for being able to upgrade and include an aftermarket system, which is where the AR piece comes in, and most importantly, where Arc Audio comes in. Well, inside the Ford Flex, we've got a 7-seater mid-size SUV is what some people call it. And there's a lot of room and a lot of speaker options in here. In this particular case, we're dealing with the Sony Sync 3 system, which included not only this 7-inch screen, but we've got speakers up in the pillars, down in the doors. We've had it in the rear door, as well as the speakers all the way in the back and the factory subwoofer. The sound is good, but at the same time, it never really has been quite what it can be. Now, in the case of this system, let's talk a little bit about the vehicle and why we're doing the AR piece. So the Ford Flexes have been around since 2009, but Sony Sync was introduced in 2007. And it's been through 3 different generations of this Windows operated based system that they designed specifically for Ford. Now, it's a great system. You've got your AM, FM, CD. You've got all your tuning definition capabilities, including HD radio. Bluetooth capabilities for your phone calls, navigation, also digital media devices. You can stream directly into it and have a wide selection of music through your digital device. But one of the important things, though, with this system is it was designed to accommodate a lot of today's laws in many states, keeping your eyes on the road and your hands on the wheel. But one of the technical aspects of this is why we're doing it is because this system, in a lot of cases, in a lot of areas, is very difficult to change out in a lot of different vehicles. In this case, this is not just a radio. This is also your infotainment system. This is your navigation. This is also connected to the body control module of the vehicle, which operates your air conditioning, your heater, your seat heaters, even your seat AC, depending on what level of package you have with the vehicle itself. And even though there are some packages for some vehicles that allow you to replace the OEM radio, some people don't want to. You also risk ruining the warranty on certain vehicles by doing that. But in this vehicle, you're running this source unit, which is the Sony Sync 3 system with the 8-inch monitor, and we have the amplifier in the back. And what happens here is you can't just take that amplifier out and hook up an aftermarket amplifier to it, because this has what's known as constant voltage output, which means if you adjust the volume control on this, the voltage out of the speaker output or the signal output back to the amplifier never changes. So if you hook up an amplifier to it and you turn the volume, it's never going to adjust volume. In fact, it's just going to be full volume all the time. Now, I know some people might say, hey, that might be pretty cool, but it might get old really quick. So what you have to use is you have to use the AR module from Maestro and put it in line between the amplifier processor, which in this case we're using the PS8-50, and the factory radio. And what it does is the radio actually uses the CAN bus protocol in the vehicle to actually communicate with the module, and then that module communicates with our DSP. It makes the radio still think that the factory amplifier is in the car, but now you have things like volume control, and you can also reprogram other things here in this vehicle, like the speed sense or the speedometer sensitive level settings. You can use those level sets as presets. But other than that, you know what? You can also do your tone controls, customize it for what you want to listen to, and most importantly, you can make this thing sound awesome. Let's talk about the components that we're going to need. First of all, of course, we need the PS850 amplifier, which is the integrated DSP solution with built-in amp that we drop in, hook up, and tune. You're going to need to make sure you get the iData OEM harness. This is actually an extremely important piece because this is what adapts our product to the iData AR system. You need to be able to get yourself also a vehicle-specific harness from iData Maestro. In this case, because it's a Ford vehicle on the Sony 8-inch system, we're going to use the FO2 harness. This piece you can't do without, and you can't substitute it. You've got to make sure you get the right harness, otherwise things are not going to integrate together. And last but not least, and obviously most importantly, the iData AR module. Now these products, Arc Audio does not sell direct. You're going to have to get it from an iData AR authorized retailer. But the adapter harness and this amplifier itself, including a couple installation materials such as power cable and most importantly a fuse holder for right next to the battery, everything else is pretty much plug and play. Okay, now that we got the table cleared off, let's go ahead and take a look at what comes inside these boxes and figure out all the parts we're going to need here. So like we said, we got the PS8-50. The PS8-50 comes with a speaker harness. This is the output harness that allows us to actually connect to the FO2 harness from the amplifier to the speakers of the vehicle. We have the signal input harness for the RCAs that also comes with the PS8-50. This here is actually required in order to connect the signal output from the harness that comes from the radio into the amplifier itself. And then we have the iData OEM. Now the iData OEM harness, this here is the mating harness for the FO2. As you see right here, we have male RCA cables as well as a blue turn-on trigger lead. This blue turn-on trigger lead is actually what allows the vehicle to tell the amplifier when to turn on and off. Let's take a look at what comes in the rest of these iData components though. So in the iData AR box, we have a small data cable right here. We also have a small USB cable. This is for updating. And then we also have another data cable, which is part of the connection to the FO2 harness from the AR module. So with the FO2 harness, what we've got going on here is we've got the 3 different harness plugs right here. This actually plugs into the factory harness coming from the vehicle radio. This is your signal, your data, the CAN bus, as well as your output going to the speakers. There's also a small handful of additional plugs on here that we're going to connect up, including power, which it retrieves from the connections with the PS8-50, as well as also the additional data connections. Next step, let's get all this hooked up together. First thing we have to do is get the Maestro module programmed. This is the Maestro AR module. I have a series of connectors on one side here and one side on here. If you look at the top of the writing near the pink plug, you're going to see a small micro USB plug. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take it, plug it in, make sure you have the rotation in right. If you notice, I've got nothing else hooked up to this. This is the way you want to program the module. And then you're going to go up and click on the WebLink desktop, which you should download from maestro.com. And once it opens up, then you can go ahead and go and start into the vehicle process to picking your vehicle and doing the programming specifically for your vehicle so this module is compatible with your installation. Now that you have your AR module plugged into your computer, you're going to want to go to the internet and download Maestro's WebLink Desktop Installer. This software is the only resource available to make the AR module understand and program it for exactly which vehicle you're going to be using the AR module on. Once you're in, you're going to press the Flash Maestro button. It's going to detect the hardware that you currently have hooked up into your computer. In this case, we have the Maestro AR module. This already has firmware installed in it, but if this is a brand new unit out of the box, this will be blank and just have a couple of lines. No need to worry there. You're going to want to proceed in most cases by pressing the Flash by Vehicle button, where you're just going to select the make, model, and year. For us, we're going to use Flash by User firmware and still be able to show you some of this process, but with a dedicated point for the purpose of this demonstration. If you press the make, model, and year, you're going to see things like this. Select your year. So you're going to come in here. We're going to select 2019, Ford, which you would have other options as well. And in this case, we're going to select the vehicle. We scroll down the list and we find Flex. In this case, it's the My Ford Touch 8-inch radio Sony amplified system. And we're going to verify which radio we have. Yep, that's the one on the dash. Now that we're getting into it, you select which brand of product. Of course, it's going to be Arc Audio. We don't really want to worry about those other guys. And the particular model. We have 3 models available: PS8 Pro, PS8-50, IPS 8.8. In this case, we're running the PS8 Pro.
Now you're going to have the serial number off the bottom of your unit, and if you look on the packaging, there's going to be a SKU number and a serial number. Don't get this mixed up. And we're going to go ahead and enter the serial number at this point. Make sure that you enter the entire thing, but do not include the product model number. It's going to verify that this is a legitimate piece with the Maestro computer based upon encryption keys that we have on file. And now it's going to tell you what accessories you need. For this vehicle, we're going to need the AFO2 harness, which we already have and have unboxed. We're going to move on. And then depending where you're going to put the module, there's a 2 meter and 4 meter relocation extension harness for the Maestro module. However, in this case, since we're going to put the module right next to where the factory amplifier goes, we can use the one that came with the actual AR module itself. Now as we get a little bit further into this, you're going to now have the ability to actually customize the controls on the radio and how it works with your DSP. In this case, we have assignments. You have treble, which let's go ahead and keep this as a treble tone control. Mid-range, we're going to go ahead and keep that as a mid-range. And bass, I think we're going to use this as a subwoofer volume control. Surround, we really don't have surround in this vehicle. And speed compensated volume, we're going to use this as a preset selection. Now this will actually allow you to toggle between presets on the DSP simply by changing the number of the level of the speed compensated volume on the source unit itself. You have other options in here as well, but we're going to use that one for preset selection. Now let's go ahead and go to continue. Now features, we have the center channel speaker. What do we want it to use as? Prompts or music and prompts. In this case, we're just going to use it for prompts only. So our navigation prompts as well as our cell phone commands will all come through here. Now prompt location, as far as what do we want it to come through? Do we want it to come from the center only or just the front left, or do we want it to come from all the speakers? You know what? Nothing like 110 dB of navigation prompt commands. So let's just go ahead and do all front speakers. And optical input, there is no optical on this one, so we're going to go ahead and bypass input not used. So once we click continue, we're going to proceed forward to a review, and you can see all your selections in here. We got the vehicle, the right module, the serial number, the radio, the product that we're using it as, the accessories we have, and also what our assignments are. And now we're going to go ahead and flash the module. The flashing process can take anywhere from about 10 seconds up to about 30 seconds depending on the speed of your computer. And at the end, it's going to give you a lot of really cool resources here that are really need to be used for this installation. So the flash was completed with success. If you don't see this, you might want to go back and try it again. Now, if you want to remember exactly what you have done for your pre-programs, you can come in here and you can download a wallet card. And the wallet card will basically give you the ability to, it'll be a little reminder tool as far as for what buttons do what. And then the installation guide. The installation guide is the important one here. If you go in and you download on the installation guide, you're going to see right here, and of course it starts off with Ford Edge, but as you move further down the list, you're going to see that there's wiring diagrams, there's also multiple vehicles. So you're going to have to scroll down this list in order to verify exactly which vehicle you need the information for. But other than that, that's it.
Now that we've got everything out of the box and we're ready to go, next step is to get everything connected, but let's take a look at a couple things here. First off, we've got all of our harnesses. Now, most people would look at this and say this is the speaker output out of the amplifier, and this is the harness that goes to the factory harness in the vehicle, and we connect these together. And for a lot of industry guys, you'll see, standard colors: white, gray, white with gray, purple, green, orange, and red. The thing is, even though they're labeled, don't follow these labels 100%. Now, remember in the programming procedure, we talked about this piece here, and you have to update it specifically for the vehicle that you're actually doing the programming on. Now, when you do that programming, when it's completed, if you recall correctly, we pointed out in the top right-hand corner, it says, here's the manual for your vehicle. In fact, it's a list of multiple vehicles in that manual, and you actually have to find the specific set of instructions within that manual that tells you where this is supposed to connect to these. Now, most people would look at this and say, well, there's enough wires here for 8 channels. It has everything labeled. It should be right. But to give you an idea, we have one right here, right front center, which is going to be right front speaker, which is going to be a gray wire, or in gray with black for negative. But in fact, on this particular vehicle, this wire, if you hook it up, it's not going to work at all. In fact, The right front speaker on it is actually the sub 1 wire over here on this harness. Now, it's not that there's a problem with this harness, it's a problem with the fact that the OEM manufacturers will sometimes change the way that they do their pinouts on their OEM plugs. So make sure that you read those instructions. The other thing to remember too is when you're looking at the harness that comes with the PS8-50, you're going to see a combination of colors on here. In some cases, you're going to see solid colors or solid with a black stripe. You're also going to see the clear color here with a red stripe. Now, if you look on the end of the amplifier, you can see right here, we have channels 1 through 8 right here on the end of the amplifier. And when you plug this in, just remember that it is pin side or clip side down, and it starts from right to left, not left to right. And you can also verify on the end of the amplifier where positive and negative is. So always make sure that you're corresponding the positive and negative, which in this case, positive is all the wires on the top of the plug that doesn't have the clip here on the bottom side. So when you go to make the connections and solder everything and you're looking at this, the thing to always remember here is the solid colors are always positive. In this case, we have solid gray and solid gray with black, or solid green and solid green with black. As long as you follow that, the polarities will be right, and most importantly, all the channels are going to be right. Last step to do is let's get this baby soldered up. Now that we've got everything tidied up here, we put heat shrink across all the different connection points. Some people may just use electrical tape. Of course, you want to make sure that you don't have any frayed wires coming through, because that could cause a short and some headaches for you when you go to get everything hooked up. Aside from that, the couple of wires that are not being used, in this case it's for the right front speaker and the right rear speaker, because those are over here on the other harness. We've got some heat shrink over the end of those just to isolate them, just as a good practice. But at this point now, we can take this entire harness and get this thing hooked up. Let's show you real quick on the table here how everything goes together. We're going to do this here because it's a really tight fitment in the actual Ford Flex with where it goes, where the factory amp is located. So we want you to be able to see exactly what we're doing connecting all these together. We've got the Maestro module. First thing we're going to connect is we're going to grab the black and white two-wire cable, and we're going to plug that right here into this first connection port to the right-hand side if you're looking at the writing facing this way on the top of the Maestro module. The next one is the data cable that connects between the Maestro module and the iData port on the PS8-50. And last but not least, we're going to take this wire here, or this connector, which has basically 6 wires on it, and we're going to plug that into the Maestro module as well. Now we've got all this hooked up, and we're going to feed these back to keep them nice and clean for now. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take these harnesses right here. Now this is your OEM connection points that come with the PS8-50, which is this. This is your input signal harness for RCA. And then this here is the iData OEM adapter harness. Now this connects from here to this harness. So what you're going to do is you're going to follow the channel configurations that you have here on the RCAs, channels 1 through 6. Now in a lot of applications there's actually only 2 channels of audio, but you still want to connect these up. And always verify it to the matching point. In this case it is clip up on the input harness. So if this goes in like this and the clip is up, from the left hand side it is channels 1 through 8. So first thing we're going to do is take channel 1, which is going to be the white connector and the red connector, and we're going to connect those together. Then we find the channels 2 and 3 right here, and we go to the next 2 right here. Match the white and red. And also the next one's 5 and 6. Now one thing that is recommended is that you take some electrical tape and just for kicks and giggles, put some tape around the connections. That way there's no chance of vibration ever shaking these things loose, or during the installation process having an issue of these coming apart. All right, now that we got all those connected, the only thing left now is this extra set of connectors here. Now, even though we're not connecting to it, we would still recommend taking some electrical tape or something and insulating these ends so that way they don't touch chassis ground and ultimately take the risk of giving you any kind of noise in the system. Now let's start connecting things up. So first things first is we're going to take we're going to take the PS8-50 and we're going to take the input plug and we're going to plug this right on in to this connection port right here. Now we're going to come over here, we're going to take the speaker output connector and plug that in. The white plug right here is going to go into this blue connector. This is all outlined in the connection diagram instructions on the actual on the instructions you get from iData Maestro when you're programming the module. Then we're going to take this final plug right here and we're going to plug it into the iData OEM harness. Most importantly, don't forget this guy right here. This is your data plug that comes from the AR module up into the IDL port. So you're going to plug this right into the iData link port. And then the only thing that's left to do, power ground our remote turn-on wire and hook this thing up to the vehicle. Now, when you're doing certain vehicles such as this, you have to take into consideration the amount of channels on the amplifier. This is actually only an 8-channel amplifier, and in some cases like this, you're going to have more speakers than you have channels. When you look at the diagram from iData Maestro, you could also see that the rear speakers are actually in mono. They're actually not even in stereo, so that reduces the number of channels needed. However, we are going to be doing some expansion with this system and running a dedicated amplifier to the sub. But we want to have the DSP control of the aftermarket system that we find in the PS8-50, in addition to being able to keep all the OEM controls, steering wheel controls, everything controlled through the radio itself, which is what makes the iData AR module a perfect piece for this application. And in some vehicles, one amplifier will do everything. In this case for today, we're simply going to swap out the factory amplifier that comes with the vehicle, plug and play everything in. We've already got our power and ground ran from the front of the vehicle with a fuse holder up in the front, and simply plug and play, and then off we go to tuning. Let's get this factory amplifier out of here. Amplifier comes out with a couple of screws, and as you see, we have 3 connection points right here on the factory amplifier. All we're going to do is press on the clip and lock assembly, and it's going to remove it. And now we have the amplifiers out, and we're ready to go. So we have power and ground. In this case, we use red and blue because it's what we had. And we have our 3 connection points. First thing we always recommend is you have your pre-wired harness with your pre-programmed Maestro AR module here. And you simply take these connections and you plug everything in. Do note that these are only going to plug in one way, and they're also color-coded. So don't try to fight them. If it doesn't go in like this, you're either upside down or you're plugging into the wrong connector. We've already pre-ran one of the 20-foot USB micro cables in here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to neatly route it up here with the power cable. And we're going to get this put into position to where we can install this with the amplifier and have easy access to the other end of the cable at the front of the car for the purpose of tuning. Now, next step is, it's usually, depending on the installation, in this case, it's going to be much easier for us to make sure we have all these connections, aside from power and ground, already connected to this amplifier before we actually screw it into the vehicle itself. Make sure this USB cable gets plugged in. It makes installation much, much easier than trying to do this after it's mounted. So we're going to take this, run that under so we can clean all the wires, make sure it's pointed in the right direction, and push it and mount it in place. Now, aside from power and ground, this is everything that we need in order to make this system work in this car. And last but not least, we're going to get power and ground connected into their proper terminals. Biggest thing to remember here is when you're doing all your wires, don't put a lot of tension on the USB cable and don't put a lot of tension on the turn-on leads. Make sure you leave a little slack, and we're going to use zip ties in order to tie all this up to make sure that everything is secure, but yet all the connection points have no tension on them. At this point, we fire the amplifier up, turn on the factory system, plug in the computer, which we're going to show you here in just a minute, and we're going to get this thing rolling.
Now that we have the PS850 and the AR module installed into our vehicle, the first thing we have to do is get into the software and take care of a couple things to make sure that everything works exactly the way we want it to. First things first is get the software opened up, and you're going to want to come over here to the setup panel. And we're going to want to change the output labels, which I've already done here to speed things up. This is important because that way, as you're tuning, you know exactly what speaker is hooked up to what. In this case, we have tweeters on 1 and 2, mid-range on 3 and 4, that's in the front doors, the rear left door, rear right door on 5, 6, the center channel up on dash on 7, and then rear fill or slash sub, which I put in here for this demonstrative purpose because you can use it for a dedicated subwoofer, or the rear speakers all the way on the D pillar in this car on channel 8. But you have to be able to tell the processor and the Maestro module how you're using these. Just simply putting a label won't do it. If you come up over here to output DSP and to outputs, now you're going to come over here to where it says assignment. Now this has to be done when using the Maestro AR module. Otherwise, the fader controls as well as also channel assignment won't necessarily work. So what you're going to do is you're going to come in and you're going to select, these are our tweeters. So we have front left, front right. The mid-ranges are also in the front, so we're going to change that to front left and front right. The rear doors, rear left and rear right. Center, we're going to change that to center. And then rear fill sub is going to be here to base. That way everything has its own dedicated controls, and every time you start your vehicle, it will remind the Maestro module as well as also the PS8-50 exactly how you have the system working. Now, last things to go here. Tonal controls. If during the setup of the unit, we talked about setting up those low frequency, mid-range, and high frequency controls on the radio, this is where you can actually come in and adjust the functionality of it, whether it's like a actual tone-based adjustment or whether or not it's a full level or subwoofer control for like low frequency. There's a lot of different options in here. It's completely open up to you. And also, last but not least, remote. Over here on vehicle configuration, you can actually set the minimum master volume as well as the maximum master volume that you want the OEM radio to be able to control at. For certain systems, this is great because that prevents you from turning the radio up past a certain point to where it goes into distortion. Or if you have a system that the volume may be just a little bit too loud, or you have a customer that wants the top end controlled. I've never met a customer like that, but hey, who knows? It's there for you if you need it. But outside of that, save your file, get tuning, adjust your crossovers, your delay, your equalization, put an RTA in, tune the thing right, and most importantly, enjoy your music.
You know, after all that, there's only one thing left to do. Drive it and enjoy it. See you guys.